on the Soviet Union. So no wonder we had a Cold War. We were getting all our information about Russia from an anti-communist underground filtered through a Nazi organization. And that's when you mentioned earlier in the program, 1947, that's when they began to create a national security state here within the United States. And it started with the rocket scientists, the mind control experts, the CIA, but then it rolled into the defense industries, and then into the universities, which were packed with some of these same people. Psychiatry was a big center. They brought all the German psychiatrists over here.
But for every Nazi, they had others who, in many cases, the Nazis were actually proteges of. See, it's important to add that the Nazis, in many respects, were the proteges of a eugenics elite already in England and the U.S.
That's exactly right. The first major eugenics study, and eugenics being the study of heredity, the study of racial purity, who's your daddy.
Well, Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf that he was a student of experts in the U.S.
Exactly.
That's where he got it all.
And in fact, the first major eugenics foundation in the United States was set up by Mrs. E.F. Harriman, and it was her husband, Edward Harriman, who was the protector and mentor of Prescott Bush. Prescott Bush was a director of Union Banking Corporation and was a focal point for handling the money from steel magnate Fritz Thyssen to Adolf Hitler. Thyssen has publicly taken credit for funding Hitler to a large extent, and Prescott Bush was handling the money.
He wrote the book, I Paid Hitler.
Exactly. Now, in late 1942, Prescott Bush was even prosecuted by the federal government of the United States under the Trading with the Enemies Act for being nothing but a Nazi financial frontman. And of course now we've had two of his son, George Herbert Walker Bush, his former president of the United States, and his grandson is now president of the United States. In fact, if you think about it, we've got the president of the United States whose grandfather was prosecuted as a Nazi frontman. We've got the governor of the most populous state in the country, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose father was a Nazi Gauleiter, a party official. We got Karl Rove, who's widely known as Bush's brain, whose grandfather built concentration camps for the Nazis, and we have a Pope who, as a young man in Poland, was a member of the Hitler Youth. It makes you wonder who really won the war.
Well, they had the giant rail cars full of diamonds, everything. That was brought into Texas, because my grandfather worked for oil companies. He saw it. He said there were more Germans in Midland than there were Texans. And just unbelievable stories. But continue. I mean, let's break this down for people.
Well, that's they begin to create the military-industrial complex, but more importantly,
which mirrored. Let's explain. The 1947 National Security Act, COG, Continuity of Government, mirrored the Nazi setup.
Oh, exactly, and all of this fit right into Action Idlerflucht, or Operation Eagle Flight, which was created by Morton Bormann, who was Hitler's secretary, who survived the war, escaped to South America, was actually seen in the United States a few times, and towards the end of August 1945, when it became obvious that the D-Day landings were going to be successful and they wouldn't be able to throw us off the continent, he met with Hermann Schmitz, head of the IG Farben Chemical Combine, which is the grandfather of all the major pharmaceutical companies today, and Dr. Abbs, who was head of the German Central Bank, and they instituted Operation Eagle Flight. They took everything worth anything, patents, copyrights, licenses, gold, silver, precious stones, art, antiquities, scientists, everything. They took it out of Germany.
And Germany had just looted Europe and parts of Russia, Eastern Europe, but they were already had more industrial patents, science, A-bombs, we're going to get to that later, than anybody else in the world. And so, again, that loot was contained and protected because the British royalty was really German royalty, and much of the richest families in New York were intermarried as well. So it was also a family matter.
Absolutely. In fact, in my book, The Rise of the Fourth Reich, you'll learn that as late as 2007, documents surfaced in England that showed that during the war, the Queen Mother of England thought it was perfectly okay to have a Nazi occupation of England as long as they guaranteed that the monarchy would remain intact. And why not? Because the Windsors had changed their name from Mountbatten, who had changed their name from Battenbergs, and they all were of German heritage, so why not let your relatives come in and take over?
Well, I mean, you had the king, who they say stepped down from the throne because he married an American woman. That came later. It's mainline British history that he had to step down from being king because he had publicly backed Hitler.
Exactly. And the royals were very supportive of Hitler and very supportive of National Socialism. And that's the thing I'm trying to get by. What happened is that Hitler and the Germans proved to be a little bit too effective. And they overran Europe, they overran France, the Low Countries, they were pushing into Russia, they were threatening England. So the bankers in England and America, again, they said, oh my God, we've created another Frankenstein monster.
They're masters at double-crossing.
Yes, and so they said, well, in fact, I quote Churchill in my book, who's saying that he wasn't against National Socialism or the Nazis, he was against Germany leading the economic system.
Germany leading the New World Order. That's why they have all these famous Disney things making fun of cartoon Hitlers going, New World Order. I mean, that was the term. Everybody knew New World Order was bad, but no, it was to be an American and British Anglo-American New World Order.
Yeah, it was bring the world new order, Heil Hitler.
Adolf Hitler's New World Order.
Exactly.
In fact, pull that up. Go to YouTube, guys. And they were asking me for clips. We have a whole guy just to do that there, and he's sitting there idle today. Google on YouTube Disney cartoons, New World Order, and it'll be Daffy Duck getting mad as a secret agent, blowing up Nazis, and the Nazis are always going, Heil Hitler, New World Order, New World Order. Anyways,
find the song In the Fuhrer's Face.
Yeah, that's it. In the Fuhrer's face. Is this Nazi land so good? We would change it if we could. Yeah, anyways. All right. So
there you go. I mean, the older generations that had better education and a more classical education than we have truly understand this. I mentioned in an earlier book of mine, The Rule by Secrecy, that there was a St. Louis Post-Dispatch cartoon in 1911 that shows all the Wall Street bankers and John D. Rockefeller and Mellon, and they're all shaking hands with Karl Marx. And they clearly understood that these guys had created.
Yeah, they would fund any movement to come con serfs into killing the ruling elite and then handing it over to the bankers. And the bankers wrote all these declassified documents on that. We're going to go to break. We're going to be right back after news, folks. We're going to get into how they took over the U.S., now what they're setting up currently today. Stay with us.